Story 1. I just had this horrible dream. I haven't dreamt anything like this ever. I'm not sure if it's because I was in such a bad mood yesterday, and that mentally affected me. Just before waking up, I was dreaming that I was washing dishes, and my dad was talking to me about my family's past. That's when I learned that I actually once had an eldest brother and sister whom I had never met. He told me the story, and I was suddenly transported to the scene. It was a gray, wintry morning, and I was standing in a small convenience store, maybe in the mountains somewhere. My older brother, Stefan, was there. He, my father, and I stood in line. For some reason, the rest of the people in the store didn't really like us. Maybe they were all just truckers grumpy at early morning. Suddenly, my eldest sister, who was maybe 3 somehow, got out of the car into the parking lot. I watched her make her way into the little store we were in. This was supposedly a flashback, and even though I was there, aged 15, about to be 16, she was still technically years older than me. In a linear timeline, I didn't exist yet. It was almost like I traveled back in time to see my eldest sister as a baby. She held her arms out and I lifted her up, one arm under her and one arm around her back, her arms wrapped around my neck. It was so real. I could feel the small, warm body that I held to my chest, despite always having been the youngest in real life. In that moment, I felt like a big brother, and that I was supposed to care for the child in my arms. Suddenly, I began to run. I desperately sprinted into the bitter morning while holding my sister. As I ran, I could see newspapers whipping around me in the cold wind with the large, bold headlines reading, "Woman shoots baby twice in the head." Every time I tried to run, I would start back in the store, and each time I knew I couldn't get away, that my sister would be gunned down and there was nothing I could do to protect her. I felt so helpless and anguished. It was so real, and I was about to lose my sister. I stared at my father. I was back to washing the dishes, and he told me I had an eldest brother who came before Stefan, but he was a miscarriage. After that, my mother became very depressed, and my dad told me in Spanish, if it wasn't for me, this family wouldn't exist. My father had convinced my mother to have more kids. That's when Stefan was born, then my current older sister Alexis, then me. With my 2 dead siblings, we would have been 5. I thought about my cousins, and how they were 3, how we always thought we were also 3. As I finish writing, I'm finding myself in tears. I woke up at 6:40 a.m. right after I dreamt this, and I never wake up that early. It makes me think, what if it were real? What if my mother had a miscarriage and never told us? Why I would dream something this awful, I have no idea. Story 2. I had an awful dream just now. It's been a while since I've had one. I was at Costco with my family, and for some reason, there was a ride service where Costco employees would take passengers on a ride around the parking lot. My father and I went first, while my sister and my mother stayed behind. We got into the back seat of a white Prius, and our driver was an upbeat black man in his early 20s with cornrow braids to his shoulders. We did a circle around the lot, and then we parked. I was about to get out of the car when suddenly, the man driving started the car up again. I stopped, immediately recognized something was wrong. We slowly began driving again, passing by a large group of people consisting of other shoppers, my family, and other workers at the Costco entrance. I screamed, "Help!" out the window. The child lock was on, and we quickly sped out the parking lot. I couldn't open the door. The entire dream took place in that car thereafter. The man driving had gone completely silent. He was speeding up to 65 miles an hour. The entire time my father didn't say anything either. It was a dream of thoughts and situation. I couldn't open the door. I couldn't strangle the man in fear of crashing. I sat quietly in the seat behind the driver. Fear pounded through me. I realized I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, so I quickly buckled it in, pulled it taut, and let it go so it would lock completely, restricting my movement were anything to happen, but giving me the best chance at survival in the event of crash, which I felt was coming. I thought the man would intentionally crash and take us down with him. Maybe he had mental issues and had snapped. I tried to think of something to do. We had sped up to 80 miles per hour at this point, zooming through streets and onto the highway. I remember pulling out my phone and texting my sister, "I love you," but it took many tries because I kept making typos as my hands shook. I tried calling the police a few times but realized I couldn't speak or the man would know. The dream wasn't long, but in those minutes I had come to terms I would probably die at the age of 17. I convinced myself that I had lived long enough, and it was okay to meet the Lord now. In the last scene, I looked up to see that we were on a highway in Colorado, dangerously speeding and cutting between cars. The gas tank had 1 bar left. Then I woke up. I think I died. It's often said that you can never dream of death and you wake up before it happens because the human brain doesn't know what comes after death and cannot continue the dream. If I had survived, I think the car would have crashed and I would have escaped, or maybe a different dream would have begun. Instead, I simply woke up with this immense feeling of sadness in my soul. Thank you for listening. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of this video and what audio projects you'd like to see in the future.